Due to other commitments, I haven't been able to get many games of 40k in, and with the London GT coming up soon, I needed to get some practice in with my new and improved 18 Centurions Screaming Raven list. I've been hard at work in the list building forges trying to construct the most optimized Vanguard Spearhead army imaginable, if half of your points were taken up by Centurions. I genuinely think, and no, this is not a joke, that 18 Centurions is a very workable amount and actually might be quite good. I've played this latest list in a couple of local league games and actually won them both, but now it's time to take it to the next level and bring this new Screaming Ravens list to the monthly Winchester RTT for a proper full day of Warhammering. So allow me to introduce you to the latest Screaming Ravens list. When I first attempted the 18 Centurions at the South Coast Super Major, I wanted to also take 2 repulsors to transport them in. They're cheaper than a Land Raider and allow emergency embarkation, as well as being a little extra firepower in the list. After refining and tempering my list further, I reduced that down to just 1 to get some more useful units in there that would actually help me get points and ball control and give my Centurion space to teleport around. We're in the end game of that refinement, as this list has 0 vehicles, not a single one. Now, annoyingly, the most recent balance state has made this list 20 points too expensive, but I'll talk about the changes that I want to make for the LGT at the end. For now, let me talk you through this nonsense. There's been a lot of changed units from the previous incarnation, but not actually much has changed practically. I dropped the 2 lots of Vanguard veterans, both incursor units, the heavy intercessors, and the repulsor, which seems like a drastic change, but each dropped unit is replaced with essentially a like-for-like counterpart, apart from the big tank. The Vanguard veterans have been swapped for jump pack intercessors. They're 5 points cheaper, and having Shrike in the list makes them OC2, which is very nice for nabbing objectives. The original 5 jump pack intercessors have been buffed to 10, so that my F0X unit still has a home and not have wasted all that time painting them. The lightning claws are just chainsaws now, don't question it, it works, it's fine. That means I have 20 jump pack intercessors, each with OC2, and the big block of 10 is disgustingly cheap. Only an extra 70 points to go from 5 to 10. The incursors are replaced with a single unit of infiltrators, mostly because I had the points to upgrade, and I don't need them to be going forward for actions anymore with the increased number of units I have for that purpose. Instead, these guys just generally hold my home objective from cheeky deep strike shenanigans. The 3-man strong Blade Guard veterans have been doubled to a full 6, still with the blade-driven deep judicia for infiltrate, which gives me a very solid fights first block to get onto an objective early and tie people up. The heavy intercessors, as cool as they are, don't provide as much as what I could get from regular intercessors. They have assault weapons and sticky objectives, which is very nice, and are surprisingly deadly with their new ability to double their shots. With the spare points, I brought back an old friend, the Ghost Weave Cloak Smash Captain. He's useful for actions as well as also being able to deal a decent punch with his Thunder Hammer. And finally, I have added a Combi Lieutenant. It's another infiltrating threat, and they're just a pain to deal with, really. They have a reactive move, they're lone op, and at the start of the game, one objective of your choice allows you to reroll wounds of 1 against enemies that are standing on it, which is very cool if you remember to use it, which I don't, because everything I have uses twin linked, so I reroll wounds anyway. But it's a nice little tech piece to help round out the list and pushing me towards having a lot more ways to actually score points instead of bleeding out my few units and then having to try and score with Centurions that move 4 inches, which turns out quite difficult. This list still uses the Vanguard Spearhead detachment, but this is the last time I will be using this detachment. It has served me very well, but frankly, it's hot fucking garbage compared to the new Shadowbark Talon detachment, because holy shit, this new detachment is absolutely insane. It's basically everything I love about Vanguard Spearhead, except instead of having a deadly prize, a useful, albeit situational stratagem, it instead has feint and thrust, which gives a unit fall back, shoot, and charge. The thing that I'm always worried about is having Centurions locked in combat. It removes so much of their power, and a lot of my damage comes from these. So when they're locked in combat, I can't do anything about them. But with this, I could just fall back and shoot them. That's mental. It's like GW basically wrote a detachment for me. The uppy downy strat, now called Into Darkness, no longer has a restriction on having to be 3 inches away. You only have to not to be in engagement range. The precision melee strat, which used to cost 2 CP and was basically worthless, why would you use it, now only costs 1, which actually is really cool because on my jump captain, I could get that for free, giving me the potential of removing a character with a big hammer before it gets a chance to be useful. Also, if I have the new Raven Guard Chapter Master Ethan Shan, I can use Into Darkness for free once per turn, which is essentially free command points for me. And really the only other minor nerf is that the reactive move strat is now in the movement phase and not the charge phase, which realistically is a side grade more than anything. You can now work around it more if you want to charge a particular unit, but otherwise this is so goddamn amazing. but for now, I will have to stick with the Vanguard Spearhead. As this event was a London GT practice, I did put a restriction on myself that I would not use a deadly prize as I wouldn't have access to it, and I wanted to see if I could be fine without it. Spoiler alert, yes, it was fine. I didn't even think about it, if I'm honest. But you know what I did think about using? That's right. My Mechanicus Super over table.stronghold.com. Yep, that's right. We can't possibly recap a tournament without first going through the murky abyss known as my brain hooked on sponsor time. They're multiplying. Everywhere I look, I see a Mechanicus 2.0 from table.stronghold.com. There is no escaping the strong MDF construction and adjustable trays that keep your minis of any size safe and secure using the power of magnets. Mechanicus 2.0 is inevitable. You will buy one. So you might as well save 25% by using code PAUL25. And to ensure the continued global takeover, you get free shipping to the USA, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and most of the EU. You will click the link in the description. That wasn't an order, that is just me stating facts. It has already been decided. Stop trying to resist and go to table.stronghold.com. Thank you, table.stronghold, for sharing your blessings with the masses. Ascension Day is upon us, brothers and sisters. Do not be scared. Give yourself to table.stronghold and magnets. My first game was against Matt and his creations of Bile. Matt is a super nice guy, and this actually marks the first time I've had a duplicate opponent at an event. I didn't do a full in-depth video for my last tournament, but it was part of this video, and I played Matt in game 2, where I narrowly took the victory because of a last-minute 5-inch Centurion advance to secure enough OC to take a third objective in the last turn. Matt's list is similar to the first time we fought, but things have been shuffled around to get a big squad of Possessed into the list, as well as an extra squad of Nurglings, because there's simply no better way of spending 40 points if your goal is to be the most annoying goddamn person in the world. He still has 2 units of inferior Centurions, some fast jump units, a decent amount of scoring units, and nasty characters led by Fabius Bile himself, with a new and improved form that Matt has created, and it is just an insanely cool looking model. This tournament was actually my first time using the latest chapter approved mission cards, and my first and last time using the challenger cards. We'll come on to those later, and fortunately for this game, it was a simple mission: hidden supplies, which used to be one of the options for the bonus mission rule. It means we have 6 objective markers on the board, and look at these wonderful objective markers we have that you can get at Porter's Balance of Shop. So 5-inch points for holding 1, 2, or more objectives that are not within your deployment zone, and we have the search and destroy deployment, which is one of my favorite deployments for this army. Matt wins the roll-off and takes first deployment, and uses that incredibly frustrating 40-point unit to stop my potential infiltrates into the center. So I deploy my Blade Guard in the top corner behind this ruin. If he wants to deal with them, he's going to have to throw a lot of stuff at them, and that means he's going to be spread thin. I also have my Combi Lieutenant in this ruin nearby to try and run some interference if needed, and Matt has his other unit of Nurglings in this bottom corner. Otherwise, I deploy fairly standardly. I have a single unit of Assault Centurions in reserves, and I've been taking the 10 jump pack intercessors with Shrike as a decent threat and a fairly large OC block. They're safe over 12 inches away thanks to Shrike, and are fast enough to get to most places. I can rapid ingress them if I want to for a nice threat there, and overall that is 21 OC, which is very nice. Matt gets the first turn, drawing engage on all fronts and a tempting target, a new card for this deck that I've not used before. I get to pick an objective, and if he holds it at the end of his turn, he gets 5 victory points. So I choose this one near my Blade Guard. He can definitely get onto it, but drawing out a unit that I can then charge seems like a really good choice here, and as they approach, they can't avoid getting within 9 inches of my Combi Lieutenant, which I can move onto the center objective. His Nurglings push into my deployment zone, and they are a bit annoying to get through, but for a cheap investment, it does give Matt all 4 table quarters for engage, which is very difficult to normally do in turn 1. Otherwise, it was a very subdued start, setting up for a future go turn, but he gets the full 9 points for secretaries, and that is very strong. He also manages to get some havocs in line of sight of my Centurions, and destroys the first of 18 chunky boys he has to grind his way through to defeat me. My first turn was not quite as successful, as I drew Area Denial and Recover Assets, 2 objectives that I could score but not for max, and getting these cards later might have been nicer for more points. Still, not terrible. I can get my Combi Lieutenant into the center, but Matt has put some units against the wall here, so he's within 6 inches, so I can't get full points unless I want to yeet myself into this wall and have a less favorable fight, and then a massive clapback. Besides, there's some Nurglings that are kind of in the way, so I need to get rid of those first. I move some of my jump intercessors down to this objective to out OC him to stop him scoring on his primary, and move a few other things around to prep for the next turn. 3 Centurions deletes his Raptors very easily, meaning my Blade Guard are happy to just remain behind this ruin, but now on the objective. My Centurions take out a couple of Havocs in revenge. As the mission only scores primary for objectives not in your deployment zone, I managed to stop Matt scoring any primary, but my current hold on that objective is fickle to say the least. Matt pounces, his possessed charging at my 3 Assault Centurions that are on the board, with his Chaos Lord led Chosen running at my deployment zone, threatening either my Shrike unit or one of my 3-man squads of Devastated Centurions. He advanced some cultists onto this objective to get a good hold of it, and more Chosen start to make their way towards my Blade Guard. He also brought down some Obliterators in this corner here, and I then rapid ingressed some Centurions to even the odds. The Obliterators can use their once per game indirect fire ability to counter that, but that at least means that he has to spend that now, and he's spending it on something relatively close, and Centurions are pretty tanky, so I could probably take it. I end up losing just the 1 Centurion here, which was fine. Matt's Raptors easily surround my Combi Lieutenant. At the start of the game, Matt rolled for his Experimental Augmentations, which is the detachment rule, and risking a reroll, unfortunately only managed to get a single buff. But that buff was +1 attack in melee, which meant that, surprisingly, 25 Warp Talon Claws did indeed make light work of that single model, so my Combi Lieutenant does go down. The 10 possessed annihilate the 3 Assault Centurions, mostly just with the devastating wounds, and after having spent a command point to retreat the Shrike unit, the Chaos Lord Chosen squad make a charge into my Devastated Centurions, but only managed to kill 2 of them. That means he's still locked in combat. Matt does score Established Locus for 2 points, and a new card, Display of Might, for 4 points, as he has more units in No Man's Land than I do. At the start of my round 2, these Blade Guard grant me at least 5 points on the primary, which is very nice, and it's time to fight back, especially when I draw Overwhelming Force and Marked for Death. Now, Matt picked some really good units for Marked for Death that I simply am never going to be able to get to, but the new version of the card does grant the chance to pick a unit to try and kill for less points, which I really like. It makes it less of a dead draw if your opponent just has loads of stuff that you can't possibly get to on that turn. I picked the remaining Havocs for this and very easily destroy them. My big 6 of Centurions have space to teleport and annihilate 9 out of the 10 possessed, because despite using Strike from the Shadows and having rerolls to hit, I somehow missed 3 las cannon shots, so I don't quite get the full 10. Now, as it was a squad of 10, the blast from the missiles do a lot of work, and with the mortal wounds from jump packet testers, I managed to get the last 1 in the charge phase. The Melter Centurions move forward towards the Obliterators, and with a combo of Melter and Charges, managed to get rid of that scary nightmare. Blade Guard also make their way forward, and with my Intercessors getting set up on that objective, Blade Guard can now go forth and charge the approaching Chosen, taking them out with few casualties in return. Shrike's unit surrounds the Chaos Lord Chosen that is locked in combat with a single Centurion, and do 8 mortal wounds on the charge, and delete the rest of the unit and the character in the fight phase with ease. In response to this turn, Matt does rapid ingress his Obliterators so that they hold both middle objectives, which is a very, very good play. There's nothing I can really do against that. I need to shoot my big squad of Centurions at the possessed, and there's nothing else really that I can use to deal with them. So that's going to be some points for Matt, at least on his turn. The Jump Pack Intercessors and Nurglings continue their epic battle. Every round ends up with another wound taken on each side. This is the fight of the century right here, a proper slobber knocker. Lethal hitting Nurglings versus -1 to hit JPIs in a battle some are calling extremely slow and inconsequential, but still very entertaining. We enjoyed ourselves. Matt's turn 3 is where things start to turn. Assassination and behind enemy lines for secondaries. Behind enemy lines at this point isn't really that possible, so he spends a command point to redraw into recover assets, which is a little bit better. Assassination should be easy. That big squad of Chosen led by Bile should be able to delete the Blade Guard and the Judicia, even through fights first. With Dart Packs for sustained hits, Strength 6, Toughness 5, 3 wounds each, and a lot of attacks. Bile can blank a damage even if I get something through, and there's a stratagem in the back pocket for fights on death. However, there's one small problem. Chosen can advance and charge, but the advance roll wasn't very big. Matt rolled a 1 and then tried to re-roll it with a command point and re-rolled it into a 2, which is better than what normally happens. Ideally, Matt wants to avoid the center. He can walk through this ruin and get most of the squad close. That would put him on an objective in direct line of my big Devastator Centurion squad. But if he spends his movement and goes out of his way to avoid a move around this way, he might not get many in on the charge if he rolls too low, and they are kind of spaced out away from my Blade Guard. Therefore, he might not get the full squad into engagement range to fight, and that will cause problems. Matt takes the risk of the Overwatch. As they are on an objective, I get full hit rerolls. Normally, when I Overwatch, I don't end up doing too much. I like to take a chance like this. With full rerolls, it's usually worth it to fish for the 6s. And with it being a squad of over 10, that's 63 plus 12 missile shots, each wounding on 3s with D3 damage. That could spike and take a decent chunk out the unit before they have a chance to fight, so might as well give it a go. So I fire the last cannons first, and I get 3 6s. And then I can reroll the misses. I have never in my life rolled such a perfect Overwatch. Matt is forced to blank one of them with the Bile once per turn ability, and then sacrifices the Surgeon Acolyte so he no longer has access to it, and then 3 more Chosen are destroyed. The missiles also do decently well and manage to take out another 2, halving the squad before it even gets a chance to face my Blade Guard. Despite that setback, Matt continues his plan, charging into the Blade Guard, and the Blade Guard's fight first decimates the remaining Chosen, leaving just Bile all alone. Bile does manage to get 1 Blade Guard back, but that was a brutal turn, especially because it was his turn, not mine. And it doesn't stop there, because I draw Assassinate and no prisoners on my turn 3, with Bile just sitting there surrounded by Screaming Ravens. But then it gets even worse, as on Matt's turn 4, he sees a chance to get some points for his own no prisoners to send his Warp Talent over to my Hammer Captain. He charges in, fails his Dark Pact check, and loses a Warp Talent immediately, but the remaining 4 have 20 attacks between them with sustain. 13 wounds get through, and that should be plenty. I only have a 4-up invuln and 6 wounds, so that... And it doesn't stop there, because on the fight back, I managed to kill all 4 of them. The dice saw the writing on the wall and told Matt, no. And as much of a nice guy that Matt is, even Matt could not be swayed from heresy. Our honorable battle that had lasted nearly all 5 rounds between Jump Pack Intercessors and Nurglings was down to just a single JPI versus a single Nurgling. Back and forth, these titans traded blows, but whilst the ref was distracted, that bastard Nurgling low-blowed the JPI and allowed the cultists to come in with a steel chair, knocking the JPI down for the 1, 2, 3. Absolutely abhorrent heal tactics from the Chaos Space Marines to sully a fantastic match. But that turn 3 really was the decider, and Matt couldn't do enough to slow my Centurions down, and despite Challenger cards coming into play turns 4 and 5, it didn't do anything to stop my victory. 95 to 59. A solid start to the event for me. I got a win, so at least I can't go 0-3, but more importantly, I had a really fun game. Now, my second game was against someone who I have dreaded playing against at these events. Not because they're an arsehole or anything, they're just very good. But it was inevitable that one day I'd play against Brett. Brett is a super nice guy, and I actually first met him at the South Coast Super Major. He was playing a game next to Ben from Grudge Hammer Wargaming in Game 5, and I ended up talking to Brett as well, as you do at these events, because people are friendly and it's fun to meet new people and talk about the game. Now, there's 2 things you should know about Brett. 1, he plays AdMech, which for those who play 40k should tell you a lot about him. And for those who don't play 40k, AdMech, or Adeptus Mechanicus, isn't seen as a particularly strong army, but has a very dedicated fan base who can make it work. And oh boy, does Brett make it work. Because the second thing you should know about Brett is he's a fucking insanely good player. He usually at least podiums at these events and gets very high scores. I've played against him before in some friendly matches, and I've not done very well. He's in like the top 150 globally or something, and for context, I'm in the top 7,000 or something. It's ridiculous, right? But you know, my own fault for winning the first game and getting to this bracket. Brett's list is this. I don't know AdMech. They're really complicated, and the data state has changed a whole shit ton of it for Call and a bunch of other stuff, and frankly, talking through this list would be kind of pointless, because I don't know what the fuck is going on. All I really know is that there's a big Reach squad, which is terrifying. He has Battle Line at the wazoo, and Ruststalkers are deadly. This game, as well as the next game, were both good games, and I had fun in both, but they both also ended up being losses. And they were losses in the normal way my losses are. My scoring units died too soon, and my Centurions cannot pick up the shattered pieces of the Screaming Ravens enough to get a win. But the positive of both of these games was that they were not complete shutouts. Normally my losses end up with me scoring in the somewhere between 40 and 50 point range, but in this game against Brett, I actually didn't do too badly, at least compared to normal. And that's including the Challenger cards I got before anyone starts. I still scored well even without them, so chill. There's a lot of tricks that AdMech can do to really secure board control. Scouting battle line units so that can sticky objectives, fast movement with the Haloscreed battle play detachment, disgusting Overwatch threat with the breaches, and generally just a lot of stuff to shift. My plan was confused. I set up fairly aggressively, quite far up my deployment zone, even basically the front line, hoping that I could be in position to contest wherever Brett went. But after setting up that far, I started off moving quite cagey and reserved. And when Brett went all in with his Ruststalkers, I lost a lot of units turn 2 because I was too indecisive and didn't really make any decisive plays. I managed to kill Call early, but I threw too much at him when in reality it just needed 2 las cannons. So I was out of position with a bunch of stuff, and after finally getting rid of the Ruststalkers that got into my deployment zone, I hadn't got much left against the entire back half of Brett's army. It did seem like Overwatch, though, was my friend today because I teleported my big 6 dev sense to deal with his breach squad. And despite the myriad of buffs that makes that prospect pretty scary, I managed to save all but one of my saves and ended up not losing a single Centurion. And then I completely destroyed the entire squad and character in one shot on the return, which, you know, was nice, but unfortunately fairly inconsequential. Purge the foe meant that my mispositioning and Brett's tactical acumen created a sizable primary deficit, and without units to score my secondaries, they were equally lacking. But not terrible. 74 to 94 defeat. Game 3 was against Joe, who was a super nice guy and also a very good player. We both had a 1-win, 1-loss record at this point, and both of our losses were to Brett. Great news. This was my first game against Thousand Suns. I have a Thousand Suns army, and I really like the new codex. I think it's really cool. Or at least it was. It was a fairly nasty nerf, but I'm sure it'll be fine. But I've not played them much in 10th, and I've never played against them. Joe was playing Rubricae Phalanx, which is the detachment I was most interested in playing myself, so I was looking forward to seeing how it worked. Jesus fucking Christ, is this thing scary. Okay, gameplay-wise, similar to Game 2. I basically didn't have enough of a solid plan on how to deal with Joe's army, and that's fine, because it's a new army for me to play against, and it takes a few games to really get a feel on what to do. But some of the mistakes I made were ones that could be applied to many different opponents, and some things I did were just fundamentally not very good. Also, having 2 charges to make and rolling a 3 and then a 4, and trying to command point reroll that 4 into a 3 doesn't help. But again, bad dice aren't generally the deciding factor. The plan wasn't very good anyway. Joe's list hinges around 2 big blocks of Scarab Occult Terminators with Terminator Sorcerers. One of the scary units T-Suns has is the Zangle on disc, but apart from a single Shaman, Joe didn't bring them, which is quite interesting. Instead, opting for his 2 beefy bricks, a few small units of Rubrics, 2 Mutilith Vortex Beasts, and 2 smaller units of Sector robots with some characters. So let's talk about the absolute sick, nasty bullshit that the Thousand Suns can do. This is Joe's deployment. Doesn't that look ridiculous? Risen Rubricae is an enhancement that allows a Rubricae unit or 2 Rubricae battle line units, so Rubric Marines, I don't know why they had to specify like that. It gives them infiltrate. And with a 10-man block of Scarab Occults with a Terminator Sorcerer, you can do this insane shit. I mean, technically, anyone with a big amount of stuff that they can infiltrate with a redeploy can do this, but you can do this shit. Basically, this entire area of the board, I can no longer infiltrate in. Now, to be fair, this plan does require you going first to get it off because someone else could just counter this by doing the same thing. But it's completely safe because Iron Man allows you to redeploy units, including into reserves. So you can plonk this down, completely block the area, and then retreat to safety. My big mistake here was basically taking the bait. I saw that there was a remaining No Man's Land objective, and I put my Blade Guard there. That was kind of stupid, because now Joe could just set up and counter it, because I can't really do anything about it, and I didn't have enough backup for that area. Even more stupid was taking on the 10 Zangles he brought down to that objective in his first turn, and yeah, I killed them, and I got like 2 points for Mark for Death. But now my Blade Guard are sitting ducks and helping nothing, and it's an extremely pivotal unit for my army that I should not be losing early. Really, what I should have done is just not play that game. Maybe send my Combat Lieutenant down there just to harass a bit, but otherwise just really shore up the mid-board and position for a top objective play. He has 2 units of SOTs that will be in Deep Strike, so he doesn't have huge amounts on the board. If I played less wide, I could have got a solid position, screened out potential deep strikes for that position, and he couldn't have really brought down his Scarab Occults unless he was in a relatively bad place. But I played far too back and spread too thin. In my second round, I lost a lot, including my Hammer Captain to a full-powered Doombolt. That fucking hurt, because, I mean, Jesus Christ. But the worst was what he did to my 6th squad of Devastated Centurions. It's been a while since I've had the problem of them coming onto the board from reserves, kill one thing and die. But die they did, because Scarab Occult Terminators in Rubricae Phalanx are absurd. Lord of the Rubricae gives the unit +1 to hit. They also have lethal hits because of the Terminator Sorcerer. They're -1 to wound at all times if they have a Psycho, which they always will, and get +1 to armor saves on any damage 1 weapons. So weight of dice can't save you here, especially with their 2-up, 4-up. With these spells Destiny's Ruin and Twist of Fate, you get full hit rerolls and an extra AP2 on your weapons against a unit. So just the Scarab Occult Terminators alone get AP4 bolters. My Centurions are saving on 6s against bolters. The nearby Sector robots, their melter becomes AP6 6. Now, this combo isn't as guaranteed anymore, as the recent changes means you cannot attempt a spell another model has already attempted, even if they fail. It used to be that you could try it as long as no one else was successful, and I think this change is actually good and okay, because it means you have to take more risks with the third die when casting spells. The way it works is you roll 2 dice, and then you can choose to roll a third dice to push the number up. However, if you roll that third dice and there are any doubles, you take some mortal wounds. So instead of seeing a double 2 and discarding them in favor of getting another go with a different unit on the same spell, now you have to try and upcast and take the mortals. And I think that's a bit healthier overall. It's a bit more of a decision you have to make whether you really want to take those mortals or not. And I think that's fine, because bear in mind, it's not just characters that can cast spells. It's, you know, the sergeant, every single unit of Rubrics and Scarab Occult. So you have a lot of chances. That on top of the other nerfs, maybe that was too far, but we've seen before how initial outrage at nerfs ends up being not as dramatic, and Thousand Suns may end up being fine. Or maybe they are just shit now. I don't know, but they're still cool, and you'll probably still do fine with them, to be honest. And I'm looking at you, Drukhari players. Chill out. Unless you're a Covens player, in which case, yeah, I guess that's fair. You can't even play a full army of Coven anymore. Maybe just add a bunch more Ravagers with some racks on them, and then it'll be kind of okay. I don't know. Those combos are really nasty and ended up just being too much for me to handle. I did manage to do 29 wounds to his Mutant Vortex Beast just with las cannons, which exploded and killed his own Zangor Shaman, which freed up my jump ancestors to make a more favorable charge. All it really did was make my score look extra nice. Final score being 90 to 69, which according to most people I spoke to means I won. So take that, Joe, you tricksy bastard. So a 1-2 score, which is very standard for my one-day events these days, but despite the score, it felt a lot more positive, and I think this new list can definitely perform as I improve as a player. Now, we need to talk about how I want to improve my list and what I'm taking to the London GT. So my tentative list is quite simple. Remove the infiltrators. The 12-inch bubble is nice, but otherwise there are 100 points of just sitting there doing nothing. I'll put Aethan Shan in, and that makes my list exactly 2,000 points. If I don't have Aethan Shan, I think I'll just make the infiltrators in curses instead. I imagine there's some other things I could do. I could look at adding in a Redemptor now that they're under 200 points, but honestly, I like this list, and I think it can do pretty well, especially in the new detachment. So I don't want to change a ton, because I think the new detachment does enough changes. The biggest thing is that I don't have to be scared of putting my Centurions forward. Before, I'd be worried about a turn 1 Alpha Strike and being locked up, so I'd put them near the back and have to slowly either walk them or teleport them. Now, just do it. See if I can. Come at me. I can just fall back and shoot you now. Man, am I excited to use this new detachment. I can't wait to end up going 0-5 at the London GT, because it doesn't matter how good this detachment is, it's still me running it, and I'm a fucking idiot. If you're going to the London GT, I hope to see you there, and if you end up playing against me, please throw the game so I can feel like a big shot. And thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff. Hype is a thing. I don't know what it does, but it's a thing. Should I tell you to hype? Sure. See if it does anything. I actually have no idea. Probably not. But what does do something is becoming a member or Patreon like all of these lovely folks, or buying my merch. Make your prediction for how you think I'll do at the London GT, and if you're correct, then you win. There's no prize. You could just feel good about yourself, I guess.